All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't filled out your public hearing appearance slips, please do so before we start. If you want to speak on a specific thing, on item on the agenda or public comment. So I call this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. Can we have roll call, Pat, please?
Mr. Buckholz.
Yes, here.
Ms. Hessel.
Here.
Mr. Schulman.
Here.
Ms. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Ringheimer.
Here. Okay. All right, pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, number D, statement of committee hearing procedure statement and hearing notice. The full statement of committee and hearing procedure documents, including directions or individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in the back of the room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of committee and hearing procedure documents is hereby incorporated into the record of this committee meeting. Any public hearing conducted at today's meeting has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 of the Wisconsin statutes in the Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette. Okay, number E, approval of March 15th minutes. I need a motion to approve, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel, second by Mr. Ringheimer to approve the minutes of the March 15th. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. All right, public comment, please note that this time it's tended to the general public, not comments related to a specific application before this committee. Each item requiring a public hearing will have its public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by this committee. If you wish to speak on a specific item, agenda item, we encourage you to hold your this time. And any public out there that will be speaking, you will be limited to 3 minutes, no more. We will cut you off.
I have one appearance slip for Linda Zilmer.
Good morning, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, resident of the village of Birchwood. And after having watched the video of the county board meeting, the phrase just keeps going through my mind. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always gotten. So when I look at what's been going on the last 2 years and how things have not moved forward very well, I'm wondering what would be different in the next 2 years. My other public comment has to do with, I appreciate that there will be a postponement of the public hearing on the zoning ordinance amendments. I don't believe that version 5.4 was better than previous versions, and I don't believe that version 6 is better than version 5.4. It just creates more kind of convoluted and disconnected definitions. Also, with the start of another 2 years, the tourist rooming house ordinance is something that I believe would benefit from a joint discussion of the zoning committee and the Health and Human Services Board. And just from looking at other counties which do incorporate a zoning process, and you have yet to see what the WCA's model ordinance would look like, I don't think it's fair or appropriate to put all that burden on Health and Human Services. And so that's why I would appreciate if there was a joint discussion. And in the business world, we looked at pinch points or bottlenecks in processes. And I think that's what I see here, that if zoning doesn't have the staffing or the capacity to take care of all the things that they have to take care of, maybe we should look at providing zoning with the resources that they need so that it can be a shared thing about the land use of a lodging tourist rooming house versus just a licensing ordinance through Health and Human Services. I don't think is ready for public hearing in May. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Anyone online wishing to give public comment? Seeing no hands raised online. Anyone else in the audience for public comment?
Okay, move on.
Don't see any. Moving on to rezone applications. This is a public hearing. The town of Sand Lake, rezone number 24-004. Owner Lester Troyer, part of the northeast one quarter, the northeast one quarter, tax ID 28599. It is 0.62 total acres zoned agricultural 1 and commercial 1. Also included as tax ID 28601, which is 2.54 total acres zoned commercial 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone the entirety of both properties to RR1 to be able to divide the property into a different configuration and then sell the newly created lots as non-commercial residential lots. As part of my staff report, again, the purpose of the request is to rezone both parcels, which a total approximately 3.16 acres of agricultural 1 and commercial 1 to residential recreational 1. Again, this is to then divide the property into a different configuration and to sell those newly created lots as non-commercial residential lots. The Shoreline Wetland Overlay District is not subject to change as part of this request. The applicant is requesting this rezone as part of the additional maps attached to my packet. The proposed rezone would result in conforming zone district dimensional requirements. With an approved rezone, a new certified survey map would be recorded, which would divide the property into different lots. I have seen the prelim CSM, certified survey map of that proposal, and it would meet the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. This property is located off of Highway 27 and Boylan Road. The nearest RR1 zone property is approximately 975 feet to the south. The future land use map for the town of Sand Lake shows this area as shoreland, as there is a smaller pond within 1,000 feet of this property on the north side of Boylan Road. Shoreland, as defined by the town of Sand Lake comprehensive plan, still references the old lake classification system, which is no longer in effect. These lake classifications were initially intended to protect environmentally sensitive bodies of water. The town plan further goes on to state when and whether their areas should be rezoned to be consistent with provisions of the town of Sand Lake comprehensive plan. It is at the discretion of both the town of Sand Lake and the Sawyer County Zoning Committee based on a mutual agreement upon decision. The existing land use maps as included in the town of Sand Lake comprehensive plan show this area as commercial with intermittent areas of residential. The current surrounding land use is light residential, commercial, and most predominantly agricultural. The current property is not engaged in any type of agricultural use, and the previous commercial business operating on this property has been discontinued. By motion and action of the town board, motion was to approve the proposed rezone. Robert Langham, Chair, Greg Sedvey, Supervisor, Mike Russo, Supervisor. No objections and made sense. Elaine Nyberg, Town Clerk. There were 7 additional comment letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 1 was returned with objections. I own the property in the corner of the intersection of Boylan and 27. Oh, I have no objections nor comments on the rezone. So no comments or no objections to it. And that is all.
All right, thank you, Jake. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-004. We have a motion by Ms. Wilson,
I'll second.
the second by Ms. Hessel to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-004. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is not hearing Nathan on behalf.
You want to step up to the mic and state your name and
Gary Nathan. Thank you.
Your applicant is here.
Oh, there's Mr. Trier.
okay. All right. You want to come up and speak to the committee, sir? State your name.
Thank you. My name is Lester Troyer.
Is there anything you would like to tell us about the rezone?
I'm not sure what kind of details.
Is whatever you feel that we need to hear.
Okay, well, we had this property, a little over 3 acres. Decided to divide it and sell half of it off. And needed to be rezoned commercial for, I think, for mortgages and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Don't know much about this business.
Oh, you're doing fine.
You have any questions?
You guys have any
Answer?
questions for him?
I can add something to it. So Lester and Katie have divided it off. They, part of one of the buildings that had that, they've remodeled that. They're actually going to live in it. And we're selling the other house to a young couple. Hence, residential makes more sense because both of the structures are going to be used for residential purposes. And even for mortgage purposes, it's better to have it as residential.
Okay,
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
go ahead, Ms. Hessel. Hang on, something, Ms.
That's okay.
Hessel has her.
I'll just ask, Mr. Nathan, so the closest other commercial spot is the gas station down the road, correct?
I think so, although there might be one other commercial piece between the gas station and this on Highway 27.
Yeah, the map on the screen right now shows the commercial zone district. So there actually is quite a bit of intermittent commercial
Yeah.
along that 27 corridor.
This property is, to get to the property, you have to turn on Boylan Road. So it's not right off of Highway 27, although it abuts Highway 27.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone out there want to speak in favor of this rezone? Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in opposition of this rezone? Okay, if not, need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-004, please.
I'll make that motion.
We got a motion by Ms. Hessel.
I'll second it.
Second by Ms.
Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel and a second by Ms. Wilson to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-004. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearings.
This is the discussion action for the town of Sand Lake, rezone number 24-004. Owner Lester Troyer. Legal description is previously read into record. This is to rezone the property of tax ID 28599 of 0.62 acres, as well as tax ID of 28601 of 2.54 acres, zone commercial 1 and agricultural 1 to the proposed request of residential recreational 1.
Okay, all right. Committee, I turn it over to you and I ask that whatever motion you make, that you include your
Findings of fact.
finding of facts in that motion. So I'm looking for a motion to either approve or disapprove.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezone application, findings of fact 1 through 13.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wilson and a second by Ms. Hessel to approve the rezone. Any more discussion? If not, Pat, can we have roll call, please?
Buckle.
Yes.
Ms. Hessel.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Schulman.
Yes.
Mr. Ringheimer. Yes.
Okay. It's approved.
All right, moving on, this is the public hearing, Town of Winter, rezone number 24-006, owner Phyllis Topaski, part of the northeast one quarter, the southwest one quarter, tax ID 42680. It is 7.13 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone approximately 1.15 acres of residential recreational 1 to commercial 1 for having the ability to purchase the land that is currently being leased for the building that is being used by the Loretta Trailblazers Snowmobile and ATV Club. The current building would be on its own separate commercial lot, which would be a permitted use within the commercial 1 zone district. As part of my staff report, again, the purpose is to rezone approximately 1.15 acres of residential recreational 1 to commercial 1. The applicant is seeking this with the additional attached maps in the packet. The proposed rezone would result in conforming zone district dimensional requirements as well as permitted use within that commercial zone district. The remaining portion of our R1 land is not subject to change as part of the request. The Zoning and Conservation Department has received a preliminary survey map of the requested rezone area. The purpose of the request would be then to have that permitted use within the commercial 1 zone district for a building that is currently being used by the Loretta Snowmobile and ATV Club, which is known as the Loretta Trailblazers Club. The property is located off of Highway W near the Flambeau River. The nearest C1 property is immediately adjacent to this property to the south. The future land use maps of the town of Winter shows this area as rural residential. However, there are several other commercial zone districts within this immediate area. The current surrounding use is light residential, commercial, and forestry. The town of Winter comprehensive plan also references that the future land use map is not an official zoning map. It references the long-term recommendations of land within the town of Winter. The map is advisory and does not have zoning authority. It is intended to be used by local officials to coordinate and manage future development. As by action of the town board, motion was approved. John Zaralski, chair, Tom Housel, supervisor, Ronald Fandry, supervisor. No additional comments, signed Jenna Pettit. There were 8 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. None were returned.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thanks, Jay. I need a motion to go in public hearing on rezone number 24-006, please.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Righeimer and a second by Ms. Hessel
Yes, thank you.
to go into public hearing on rezone number 24-006. Okay, is the app here? We are now in public hearing. Is the applicant here? Come up, state your name, sir.
Dan Schauder. And you're acting as the representative agent, right, as part of the purchaser?
Yes, I am.
Is there anything you want to tell the committee or?
Just, obviously we're seeking to do this in order for the Snowmobile Club to actually own the land that the building sits on that we currently own. The Snowmobile Club built that building 15, 20 years ago with a long-term lease with Phyllis Topaski. She has now agreed, since the lease is going to be coming up, to sell the property. But in order to do that, obviously we need the rezone for it to conform. So.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, sir. Everybody else got their hand up, right there, Jay?
Not right now.
All right, is anyone out there that wants to speak in favor of this rezone? Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in opposition to this rezone? Okay, if not, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-006.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Hessel, a second by Ms. Wilson to come out of public hearing on rezone number 24-006. We are, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, Town of Winter, rezone number 24-006, owner Phyllis Topaski. Legal description is previously read into record. The request is to rezone approximately 1.15 acres from residential recreational 1 to commercial 1 for having the ability to purchase the land that is currently being leased by the Loretta Trailblazers Club.
Okay. All right, committee. Turn it over to you.
I'll make a motion to approve on findings of facts 1 through 13.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Righeimer
I'll second
and
that.
a second by Ms.
I'll let him get it.
Okay, and we have a second by Mr. Schuman to approve
Yes, sir.
the rezone number 24-006. Is there any more discussion? Okay, if not, roll call, Pat.
Ms. Hessel.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Schuman.
Yes.
Buckles,
Yes.
Ringheimer. Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Motion carries. We are now on to conditional use permits. This is a public hearing in the town of Lenroot. Conditional use permit number 24-008. Owner, the town of Lenroot. This is the Lenroot Shop Pit, part of the west one half of the southwest quarter of Lot 1 of the CSM number 7787, tax ID 41068, zone commercial 1, which is a total of 15.53 acres. Permit is desired for the 5-year renewal of conditional use permit number 00-007 for the location and operation of a non-metallic mineral extraction operation, including rock crusher. Conditional use permit was originally approved at public hearing on April 20th of 2000, most recently renewed on April 16th of 2019. As part of my staff report, again, this is for the 5-year renewal of conditional use permit number 00-007. Property is 15.53 acres, zone C1, and includes a gravel pit as well as a shop area. The surrounding use is forestry and light residential, with the nearest residence approximately 1,100 feet away. The town of Lenroot plans on extracting and crushing approximately 2,000 cubic yards of material annually to be used on town road projects. The zoning department does not show any complaints on file for this site. However, the National Scenic Riverway has opposed this pit historically. Pursuant to NR 135.02, parent 2, municipalities are exempt from financial assurance requirements. As part of possible conditions to be listed as part of this renewal for the conditional use permit would be to maintain compliance with NR 135, which is for the reclamation plan, maintain compliance with the plan of operation, including the hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and crushing from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, periodically through May through August. Maintain compliance with the Department of Natural Resources, Chapter 30, that all other town, county, state, and federal laws are followed. Again, this is for the town of Lenroot Shop Pit. The town of Lenroot ultimately, obviously, approved it. Gordon Christian's chair, Jack Schustrom supervisor, Jason Schustrom supervisor, Michael Bandro supervisor. No additional comments, side Carol Stone, town clerk. 5 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners, 0 were returned. That is all.
Okay. All right. I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-008, please.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Hessel, second by Mr. Righeimer to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-008. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. Mr. Christensen, you want to speak to the committee?
I'm Gordon Christians, the chairman for the town of Lenroot. This is our shop pit. Last time we crushed was about 3 or 4 years ago. We'll probably have to crush again in a couple more years after we get the existing gravel out of there, so we got room to do it. Beyond that, nobody's said much about it, including our neighbors. So I presume it's okay.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Christensen? Mr. Schulman, you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Does anybody out there want to speak in favor of this CUP? Does anyone out there want to speak in opposition of this CUP? If not, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-008, please.
I make that motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson
I'll second it.
and a second by Ms. Hessel to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-008. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action for conditional use permit number 24-008, owner, town of Lenroot. Legal description is previously read into record. This is for the 5-year renewal of conditional use permit 00-007 for the location operation of a non-metallic mineral extraction operation, including rock crusher. Take in mind when making any types of motions to include potential conditions as well as findings of facts.
Okay. All right, committee.
I'll make a motion to approve CUP 24-008 based on the findings and facts 1 through 7.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel. You second,
I'll
Mr.
second.
Righeimer, and a second by Mr. Righeimer to approve the CUP number 24-008. Any more discussion?
Are you gonna add Jay's staff report or don't we have to?
Should.
Yes. We're adding it. Thank you.
Did you make that as your
Yep.
motion?
I didn't, I just did my findings and facts, but I could definitely amend my motion to
We should
include.
do
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I will approve CUP 24, sorry, now I lost my page.
Yeah.
24-008 based on findings and facts 1 through 7 and the zoning administrator's report
Or conditions.
or conditions. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman.
All right. Any more discussion on that? All right. Can we have a roll call, Pat?
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Hessel,
Yes.
Mr. Ringheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Buckles.
Yes.
Okay. Try to catch up here online as well. This is the public hearing for conditional use permit number 24-009, owner A1 Plumbing, known as Jones Pit. This is part of the southwest one quarter, the northwest one quarter, section 12, township 41 north, range 8 west, tax ID 26595. Also includes southwest one quarter, the northwest or northeast one quarter, as tax ID 26546. Both properties zoned forestry 1, totaling 60 acres, again known as Jones Pit. This permit is desired for the 5-year renewal of conditional use permit number 13-005 for the location, operation of a non-metallic mineral extraction operation, including rock crusher. The CUP was originally approved at public hearing on June 21st, 2013, and most recently renewed on April 16th of 2019. As part of my staff report, again, this is for the 5-year renewal. The property is approximately 60 total acres. The proposed and total mine site is about 16 acres with the current open active acres of approximately 5 acres. It is anticipated that approximately 5,000 to 10,000 cubic yards of material would be extracted annually. The surrounding land use is multiple non-metallic mines, forestry, and light residential. The nearest residence is greater than 1,300 feet away. Sawyer County Zoning Department does not show any complaints on file for this site. The current hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, with crushing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday between March and December, and 4 to 5 days per year. If weather permits, one single crushing event may occur between January and March. Financial assurance has been received in the form of an irrevocable letter of credit and is on file with the Register of Deeds office. As part of the conditions as listed in my staff report, that would be to maintain compliance with NR 135, which is for the reclamation plan, maintain compliance with the plan of operation, including the hours of operation, which I just read into record, maintain compliance with Department of Natural Resources, Chapter 30, and that all other town, county, state, and federal laws are followed. As by action of the town board, motion was approved. Rolf Hanson, Chairman, Kay Wilson, Supervisor, Donald Stover, Supervisor, Dan Palmer, Supervisor, James Strandland, Supervisor. The town of Round Lake conditional use application, they had also listed for their conditions to maintain compliance with NR 135, maintain compliance with the plan of operation, including the current hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, with crushing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Crushing operation is to be 4 to 5 days per year. If weather permits, an additional single crushing event could occur between January. They list January to December, but I believe that should be January through March. And then maintain compliance with the Department of Natural Resources, Chapter 30. As their findings of fact, they recognize the needs of agricultural, forestry, industry, and business in future growth, encourages use of land and other natural resources, which are in accordance with their character and applicability. There were 7 additional notification letters sent out to adjacent property owners. 0 comments were received back. That is all.
Okay, thanks, Jay. All right, I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-009. Mr. Regan.
I'll make a motion to go in public hearing.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion by Mr. Regeimer and second by myself to go into public hearing on CUP number 24-009. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All
Aye.
opposed, motion carries. We are now on public hearing. Mr. Vitzinda.
Hello, my name is Bart Vitsinda. I'm here to represent A1 Plumbing for the renewal of Jones Pit for the 5 years.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Vitzinda?
I guess I have one. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Schuman.
Oh, thank you. I was just gonna ask him, Chairman, if he's okay with all of the town of Round Lake staff report that they're requiring.
I'm unfamiliar with what you're talking about. If you could clarify what that is, I'd be happy to comment on it.
Yeah, so the town of Round Lake had listed conditions, which are actually the same as my staff report as well.
Okay,
Maintain compliance with NR 135, which is your rec plan. Maintain compliance with the plan of operation, which is your hours of operation, as well as your crushing. And that's where I guess I have an additional follow-up. And then maintain compliance with chapter 30, which is for stormwater. As far as the crushing, so are you looking at potentially kind of 2 different crushing cycles? One of 4 to 5 days per year between,
I'll clarify that if you don't
Yes,
mind,
please.
Jay. We were trying to put it in there due to odd weather, where normally for all my life, you could not crush gravel in the middle of the winter. We've had, not often yet, but it is possible now to do that. So I brought that up before the board, and also talked to Pat about the wording for there. The town of Round Lake made, I guess, I don't know if it was a motion, I believe it was a motion, to simplify that writing to just include the 1 crushing per year, January through December. Just to simplify that, not have the separate months. That was per their recommendation, and I agreed with that.
thank you for that clarification.
That's my idea of the meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Mr. Vitzinda? All right, thanks, Bart.
Thank you.
But I don't think so, Jaden.
I don't see any
All
online.
right. All right, does anyone out there want to speak?
I do have one
Okay,
online. And I don't know if it's for or against, but Martin Hanson has his hand raised.
go ahead, Mr. Hanson.
Martin Hanson, Town of Round Lake, member of the Town of Round Lake Planning Commission. Yes, the discussion is correct. The Planning Commission recommendation was to remove the handwritten modification to the applicant saying 1 crushing event, January to March, because the crushing event was ambiguous as to time. So our recommendation was to just include January through December, 1 crushing event, to modify the months in the original application and delete the handwritten modification. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, is there anyone else out there that wants to speak in favor of the CUP? Anyone out there wants to speak in opposition of this CUP? All right, I need a motion to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-009.
I make that motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Wilson
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Hessel to come out of public hearing on CUP number 24-009. Okay, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Come out of public hearing. We are now out of public hearing.
This is the discussion action, Town of Round Lake, conditional use permit number 24-009, owner A1 Plumbing. This is known as Jones Pit. The request is for the 5-year renewal of conditional use permit number 13-005, which is for the location operation of non-metallic mineral extraction operation, including rock crusher. As part of the staff report and what we heard from the applicant who was agreeable to the conditions, I'm going to reiterate them one more time for the board. It is to maintain compliance with NR 135, maintain compliance with the plan of operation, including current hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, with crushing 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. And that would be 4 to 5 days per year from January through December. Maintain compliance with Department of Natural Resources, Chapter 30, and that all other town, county, state, and federal laws are followed.
Okay. All right, committee, turn it over to you.
I'll make a motion to approve the CUP 24-009 with conditions 1 through 4 as read into record and findings of fact 1 through 11.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Wilson, a second by Mr. Righeimer to approve the CUP number 24-009. Any more discussion? Dot? Jay, Pat, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Hessel,
Yes.
Ms. Buckles,
Yes.
Mr. Ringheimer. Ms.
Okay.
Wilson.
All right, thanks.
Moving on, we're under proposed ordinance amendments. So ultimately, last month, there was a motion made to basically send this back out to the towns and hold a public hearing in April. Well, ultimately, the zoning committee hasn't seen the new version that I would send out to the towns. And there was enough of a merit of a change that it really needed to come back to this committee before I could even send it back out to the towns. So what I'm requesting as the zoning administrator is that we would postpone the official public hearing process and then open this back up as a discussion action item with the potential to send it back out to the towns. I think that's the most clean way to do this. Because again, if I just send it out to the towns, then it looks like I myself am doing this and I never had approval from the committee to actually send it out. So, yes, it's been a process, but I think this is probably the most correct and legal way to proceed.
Okay, Cecil.
I make a motion to approve the request from the zoning administrator to postpone the public hearing for this ordinance.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel and a second by Ms. Wilson to postpone the public hearing for the zoning ordinance amendment. All in favor, say aye. All opposed. Motion carries to postpone. Okay,
As part of new business then, that is where we would still pick this back up and have additional discussion. Throughout this process of trying to, figure out a way of getting something different as part of the zoning ordinance, because the current version just, again, does not work. There's ambiguity and conflicting aspects within the current version. So we have it back under new business here. Through this process, again, we have allowed additional discussion with the audience, which has been helpful in trying to get this to a point where we can move forward on it. So I would certainly welcome that, again, if that is okay with you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we're now on to version 6. This has been going on for approximately a year and a half, 2 years now. I took some of the comments that we received last month as well as comments from the towns, but there are things that are kind of all over the board and it's hard to appease everyone on this. One of the aspects was kind of conflicting language with the definitions. So we, and when I say we, I kind of gave a little bit more backbone to some of these definitions. They actually looked at several other ordinances through adjacent counties and had kind of come up with a definition of dwelling unit. There was some confusion between dwelling and dwelling unit. So that is kind of where we solidified those definitions. There was some aspects of dwelling multifamily and whether that includes kind of as an attachment, as a duplex. Well, no, that's not the case. It is actually as a separate dwelling unit. We also looked at the aspects of existing legal non-conforming when it talks about conditional use permit aspects, again, there are several hundred properties out there, probably even close to 1,000, that have more than one existing dwelling unit on the lot currently. And that was permitted before the zoning ordinance changed. From what I was able to look back in the records, that zoning ordinance change was of June 20th, 1985. And that is where basically the current version of the zoning ordinance would have required either a conditional use permit or would have been on a commercial zoned lot in order to have more than one dwelling unit on one lot. That's great, but we have that 1,000 plus that had built pre-1985 and have 2 cabins on their lot. And it's what we end up doing with those scenarios. The current ordinance would allow for, replacement of those dwellings. It would even allow up to 50% expansion of the floor area of those dwellings, but it doesn't necessarily talk about the use of those dwellings. Whether this was part of an old resort and now it isn't a resort, whether it was part of a condominium and it's not a condominium anymore. It's what we end up doing with those 1,000 plus scenarios. And that's where I think we're butting heads with other individuals as to how to get this in an approval format through the towns, as well as the zoning committee, as well as the county board. So definitely looking for help and suggestions still on that. We cleaned up the language of basically a duplex. When we looked at the town's responses that we received, this is back in fall of 2023. Really, they didn't want to see any type of multi-dwelling development in the shorelands. The last couple versions now of this ordinance has basically pulled all multi-dwelling development out of the shorelands. So you would not be allowed a kind of a new resort in shorelands. You wouldn't be allowed a new condominium of, actually constructing new units in shorelands or being allowed a duplex in shorelands. When we again look at a lot of those town comments that we got back just a couple months ago, there were still some towns that said they only want one dwelling unit per lot, period, regardless of where it is in the county. And I don't know if that's a route that we want to go. If the zoning committee wants to go that route, if the towns want to go that route, if the general citizens of the community want to go that route, that's fine. But at that point, if we stick with one dwelling unit per lot, you'll never have another resort in Sawyer County, not even on shoreland, but off shoreland. You'll never have any type of, smaller developments occurring on one lot. You'll have to chop it up into single individual lots, which aren't going to really have the ability to share any type of common well or septic. I think that goes against the Sawyer County Comprehensive Plan, where we're trying to find avenues for affordable housing. Because if you strike out that you're only allowed one dwelling unit per lot, that gets and eliminates affordable housing, in my opinion. So that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell. We do have another agenda item further down the line for short-term rentals. That was one of the things that we had heard from other individuals, that they wanted to kind of see where the county was moving with tourist rooming houses and short-term rentals before trying to pick up multi-dwelling development, which it does and doesn't kind of mix with this proposal. And we are looking at multi-dwelling development and the potential to rent multiple units on one lot. That coincides with tourist rooming houses, but that's really the only kind of overcross with the two. With that, I guess I'd leave it open to committee members if they have any additional questions or what their thoughts are. And then because we've kind of proceeded this way through the entire process, to open it up for additional discussion from the audience members.
Yeah, Mr. Kozlowski. Yeah, we're gonna allow the audience to speak, and you're gonna get 3 minutes, and you're only gonna get one chance at it. So I'm gonna allow public comment on that. Committee?
Do we have an update? I'm sorry if I missed it in the beginning, but do we have an update from legal or WCA? And we had talked about that. Are they further along in their rules? And I want I want everybody to feel welcome to come and move to Sawyer County, whether they're developing or having a single unit. So how do we make it a win so that the residents feel welcome and people moving here feel welcome?
Right, and are you asking about the multi-dwelling development ordinance proposal, or are you looking at the tourist rooming house ordinance proposal? Legal, I do not believe has had a chance to fully review version 6 at this point, and she is online, and Rebecca, you can certainly jump in if you want. But legal has reviewed the tourist rooming house ordinance, which we have later for discussion.
Yes, so I'll hold my comments on the tourist rooming house issues. But with respect to version 6, I have reviewed it. But I didn't want to spend, frankly, too much time and resources, county money to do a full in-depth review, because I know this is going back to the towns, and let's just see where the town comments come back. I have done those in-depth reviews of the prior versions, and Jay and I have talked extensively about the revisions and what is needed to move forward. So I feel comfortable advising the committee that this has gone through legal review. But I just want everyone to know that I haven't done as deep of a dive into this version, just given all of the circumstances. But I'm comfortable advising you that you can move forward on this, and it's ready to send to the towns, if you so choose.
Thank you. All right. You want?
Sure, if there are no other committee
No,
discussion.
any more discussions, you guys?
Good question, Jay, on your point about.
Can you, Mike?
What you said previously here with the many towns not wanting multi-development, where is that in here, and how is it stated in here? I've gone through this, but I'm trying to.
So it's going back to, and this would be as the red line version of 6.0 to the current. And I mean, that's one of the big things that I circled when I started looking at, well, how do I properly administer what's currently on the books for multi-dwelling development? And the big thing that kind of just makes me slam my head against the wall is the current definition of dwelling unit. So the current definition is, I should actually have my full ordinance, but I
So that's on
don't.
page 1, the first.
Yeah, so page 1, but this would be as the red line from version 6.0 to the current. And it basically ends with houseboats and watercrafts on land shall not be used as dwelling units or dwellings or dwelling units. And then it says only one dwelling unit is allowed per lot. That is in the current version of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance that we are under right now. And that sentence right there of only one dwelling unit is allowed per lot makes me not be able to approve any type of multi-dwelling development out there, period. Again, this is part of the red line of version 6.0 to the current. So I don't know if you're on that one or not.
No.
Version,
Yeah, it'd be page 79. I have it up on the screen
okay, I got
as well.
Okay, what I printed out is different. Okay,
And it's the definition of dwelling unit.
this right here.
And it's that very last sentence.
Got it. Okay.
And that is where, yeah, we did have some town responses back that said, yeah, we only want one dwelling unit per lot. Where again, that doesn't allow for any type of new resort, new condominium, new 2 dwelling units on one lot, new multi-dwelling development on one lot. And that it conflicts with the current ordinance because the current ordinance, through its conditional use permit portion of their zone districts, allows you to do multi-dwelling development. So they sit there and I have a definition and I have a conditional use permit route that sit there and they butt heads. Because one says you can do it with a cup, the other says, nope, you only allowed one dwelling unit per lot. And that's where I'm at a loss.
Well, didn't we have a discussion that one dwelling unit per lot on shoreline and then non-shoreland
Correct, and the current version 6.0 does that. It pulls any type of multi-dwelling development out of the shoreline. Because when we brought the town folks in
Right.
to see, okay, how can we move forward on this? What do you want to see as part of this proposal? What do you don't want to see? A lot of it was, we didn't want multi-dwelling on shorelines, which is great. Protection of our natural resources, which I am 100% for. But when we last sent version 5.4 out to the towns, several towns still said, no, one dwelling unit per lot, period. Shorelands and non-shorelands, which again, I think that goes against the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Regan, got another question?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Jay, I'm gonna throw this out there at you.
Yeah.
What happens if we just leave this and put this thing to bed for a while?
At
It
that,
doesn't seem like we're gonna get anywhere with this. I know you guys are working so hard on this, and we're trying to please too many people. And there's always gonna be opposition, and it's gonna get back to the towns where it's not gonna get approved. I
mean, if we lay this to bed for a while, I think we could be in a little bit of a legal aspect with that, and because if you had 40 acres of residential recreational too, or even as a commercial zone district right now, you have 40 acres of commercial zone district and you want to open up Mr. Buckholtz Resort and you want to put 3 units out there. I don't see a way in this current ordinance where I'm going to allow you to do that. Because my definition of dwelling unit says only one dwelling unit is allowed per lot. Ron, you're gonna have to split that into 3 separate lots through a certified survey map, and then you can do 3 separate units on 3 separate lots.
Okay.
But it's forcing you to do a certified survey map and split it. And now we have individual setbacks between those lines from where the dwellings can be. We have individual setbacks from where the sewer systems can be on those individual lots. Even though you own them all, you still have to treat them as own separate individual lots.
Okay.
So you can still call it potentially as a resort, and you could still potentially get a conditional use permit as the use of a resort. But having the units on one lot, no, you're gonna have to split the lot. That is how I would currently interpret our current ordinance, if we just lay this to bed for a while.
Okay. All right, I was just throwing that out there. And thank you for that.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
With no other questions, first public comment sheet I have is Benjamin Kurzweil.
Benjamin Kurzweil, 16040 W West Lane, Town of Hayward. First of all, I just want to clarify something from my conversations with the towns too. Anybody who says that we can't have a new resort or a new multi-dwelling development in the county is, I'm sorry, just misleading. The towns here are talking about multi-dwelling development on RR1. That's what we're talking about here, not commercial or RR2. We are talking about property zoned RR1. That's what this is all about. That's what the towns are talking about when they say they don't want multi-dwelling development. If someone wants to do a resort, you have it zoned RR2 or commercial. There you go. Version 6, although there have been changes to the definition of a dwelling unit, it still does not satisfy concerns with the formerly illegal but now legal non-conforming dwelling units above garages. It talks about sanitation in a living area and being able to cook or prepare food. That requires plumbing and electricity. Most garages have that already. Tourist rooming house ordinance. That is where the enforcement into short-term rentals and tourist rooming house comes into play. According to the TRH committee, the nearest time of enforcement of any of this will be in 2025. To me, that tells me we have a year to get any ordinance changes and discrepancies cleaned up so that by the time enforcement is around, they'll be ready to go. There is no reason to get the cart in front of the horse and start changing short-term dwellings and how many you can have where while the enforcement part of this is still in the works. And I also concur with Ms. Zilmer earlier that I think Health and Human Services is going to need some help enforcing the TRH ordinance. because there's going to be a lot of work involved. So I think having zoning involved in that too would be a good thing. And I also concur with Mr. Buckholz that I believe this version will not pass the towns. And like I said, I'm more than willing to work with Jay to try to clarify some of these things if you'd like to, and some of the concerns I have from the towns. But right now, I just feel that we need to work on this and we still have time to do it before the enforcement part comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Next I have is Douglas Kurtzwell.
Say that again, sir?
I postpone or defer and wait to hear what else other people have to say, because I might not have to say anything.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Next I have is Jenny Chabak.
Jenny Chabak, 10363N McLean Road. I would just like to say, I think there's been a lot of work done on this to date that I would not want to see go to waste. I think it needs to continue to happen and let it go back to the towns and collect more information. And maybe you've got to do another revision, but to stop now when we're so close and we've done so much work as a county, I think would be unfortunate. I'd just like to see this continue.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, are you wanting to speak on this? Okay.
Phil Neese, town of Bass Lake property owner. This has been going on for a long time. We've been to the towns twice and turned down twice. If we go anytime soon, it'll be 3. Guaranteed. And my suggestion is, I mean, I certainly could live with what the 6.0 is necessarily. There's few things that need to be tweaked possibly, but I guess there needs to be another avenue in that 6.1 or 2 or whatever this final thing that goes out, that there's going to have to be, there's town association meetings. And we have there'll be one coming up pretty soon. And that when something is ready to be presented, it should be taken out before it's just sent blanket out. The 2 towns that requested that they didn't want whatever Jay said earlier, I think that was a misunderstanding. And so I would recommend that this be until Jay can massage it, talk to Ben, whoever, whatever, and see what might be, and then go to the next towns association meeting and present what you got and see what kind of feedback you get. Because sending another draft out there at this early stage after we've been 1, 2, 3, I guarantee you, I don't guarantee anything, but I'm sure it'll be turned down. And if 6 point goes out like it is right now, it will be turned down. So,
Okay, thanks, Bill.
That's all the sheets I had, unless that one from Linda Zilmer also was wanting to speak on this.
Yes, go ahead.
Linda Zolmer, previously gave my residency and property ownership. I agree that this would most likely be turned down by the towns, but it's just because the definitions and the confusion, it's getting more confusing instead of less confusing. And I also agree that this committee, whatever it's made up of, should continue to work on this. But maybe instead of having us each get up at 3 minutes and talk on little pieces, maybe there's a session that's kind of a workshop and we can all sit down and work on something between the committee and the interested parties before it goes to the next town's unit meeting. One thing that bothers me, and the reason I'm asking to speak again, is that there's continues to be misinformation or misunderstanding about dwelling unit and dwelling. If you go back and listen to the September, October, and November 2020 zoning committee hearing, the discussion, that added sentence about only one dwelling unit was added, and I'm not pointing fingers, but there was a discussion and there was this dwelling unit statement added without legal review, and then it continued to go forward. This only one dwelling unit per lot has only been in there since 2020, and I don't think the zoning committee at that time even realized that that's what they did. So I think you need to go back and look at the history, look at how things got put into there, and a dwelling unit is like a building intended for, or not a building, it's a living area with a living area, kitchen, bathroom, sleeping area. It could be a dwelling unit, could be in a single family home. There could be two in a two-family home. State statutes say a dwelling is a single or two-family home, and I would recommend that that's what this committee look at. And I would also recommend that this committee take a look at the county, Eau Claire County's zoning ordinance. Their definitions are very clear, and maybe it's starting over from scratch, looking at Eau Claire County and working and not trying to keep working with what has been versions 5 through 6. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Kurtzwell, you want to speak now? Okay.
Douglas Kurtzweil, 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. A lot of great comments from the members here in attendance, members of the audience. The red line through red ink and more, or red line through red print and more red print after and everything is really confusing. I think we all to probably just forget all of the prior versions and start with the black hard copy text of the current ordinance and then put in proposed revisions with that. Just forget about 3.4 and 4.3 and 5.4 and 6.0 and just something clean where we don't have all of these recurring revisions with all sorts of red ink. And then also, I haven't had a time to review this, probably not even as thoroughly as Ms. Roker, but it still seems that the multi-dwelling development concept attempts to commingle structural, dimensional issues with use issues. And in the non-conforming statutes, non-conforming structures, non-conforming dimensional, non-conforming physical things are a separate passage in the statute from non-conforming uses. And there seems to be an intentional attempt to covertly conflate these two issues in some of these passages, especially with use of multi-dwelling developments in the RR1 zone district. Again, the one unit or one dwelling per lot type of a thing, a lot of this should be individualized rather than in general definitions, ought to be indicated specifically in the different zone districts. It can work, it can be done, but I think we're going to have to keep working at it real hard in order to get it done anywhere near the time that there's some kind of enforcement to a TRH ordinance. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So I guess it's up to this committee.
Do you want to ask online to see if there's any?
Oh, yeah. Is there anyone online that wants to speak?
Seeing no hands.
Okay. So I guess it's up to this committee to figure out what they want to do.
Can I ask a question to the committee? It's actually two different questions.
Yes.
From some of the comments that I heard. One of them is to potentially pull out resorts from the RR1 zone district. The current ordinance does have it listed as part of multi-dwelling development within the RR1 zone district by basically pulling it out of the RR1 as what's, again, currently in ordinance. In essence, you're creating quite a few non-conformities at that point, non-conforming uses at that point, because it was authorized by conditional use permit, and now you're prohibiting that use. So keep that in mind. But if that's the route we want to go, we certainly can. The other aspect that was brought up by Ms. Zillmer, as far as a dwelling is a one or single or two-family dwelling unit. That is what a dwelling is. Do we want to allow for one or two-family dwelling units in shoreland? And I thought that was where some of the responses came back from the town that said, no, we didn't want to see duplexes or two-family dwelling units in shoreland. And that's where we ended up promulgating additional definitions to break those out of being allowed in the shoreland. If you do want to allow it in the shoreland, which fine, do you also want additional dimensional requirements that you basically need to have double the minimum lot width and depth to be allowed a duplex in shoreland? Right now, as my current version, you can do a duplex non-shoreland, but you need double the minimum dimensional requirements if you're in the RR1 zone district. And that's where we had some additional language added to hopefully solidify, well, what does double the minimum dimensional requirements mean? We go back up to permitted uses. So in the RR2, it is a permitted use, so it doesn't require additional authorization. But for each dwelling unit, and we would call that, if you had a duplex, that's 2 dwelling units, that you need double the dimensional requirements for the width of the lot or the depth of the lot and the area. So in an RR1, you need 100 feet of width, 200 feet of depth, and 20,000 square feet. So what that would end up reading is you either need 200 feet of width, 200 feet of depth, 40,000 square feet, or 100 feet of width, 400 feet of depth, and 40,000 square feet. That's how I have that tiered up in the current version 6.0. That is again why we have those different definitions, which may be, difficult to understand. But when I had gotten the information from the town, it sounded like they didn't want to see duplexes in shoreland, which again, promulgate additional definitions to specifically prohibit that within the shorelines. I know it's been a confusing process for me as well, and definitely a learning curve, but this is where we're at. So
It's really getting mind-boggling, I'm telling you. Wow.
I think before I had suggested doing a town's public hearing, like where we invite the towns to come in and speak.
we did.
And we did do that. We just didn't send a letter.
We sent out information to the towns that they should come in. I'd have to look back at my notes of when that was done, but it was sometime in the fall of 2023. And we had maybe 5 members from towns show up. And the overwhelming consensus from those individuals that spoke was that they didn't want to see multi-dwelling development in the shorelands. One of the comments that we've gotten back from our previous draft was from the town of Edgewater. They ultimately denied because they weren't in favor of the additional prohibitions within the shorelands. So again, you're never going to appease everyone, towns and certain members, and depending on, who you are, we're never going to get 100% agreement on this. That's for certain.
But we do have a housing issue, whether it's a shortage or because of short-term rentals, it doesn't matter. We do have a housing issue. So I don't want to not welcome people to build. I mean, I get what we're trying to do. It just frustrating when everybody has their opinion of how we should do it, but nobody has the credentials as far as education for college. I'm sure that you have that. I do not. So just wondering, what do you propose? Do you want this 6.0 to go to the townships? Do you want to go to a Wisconsin's Towns Association meeting for Sawyer County and present? What do you see this going forward to get the community better educated?
Right.
Instead of just the back and forth of.
I think that town association meeting would be beneficial. Absolutely. I do believe that if we send out version 6.0 right now, it's going to be the same tune that we've heard the last 2 years. I wish I could eloquently explain what we're trying to do to each individual town member. And I've tried that via the phone, but it's hard to really sit down unless you don't have additional diagrams prepared. And that's another thing that I want to get done, to kind of show the different circumstances via diagrams. That helps people kind of see the picture of what we're trying to do.
So the next meeting is April 29th for Sawyer County at the Town of Round Lake Hall for the Sawyer County unit meeting for the Towns Association. So you would have to contact to be able to be put on their agenda. But I think that would be a better route. Do you agree?
I agree, yes, I do. And the Wisconsin Towns Association ain't no better place to present that because then you got most all the town chairs there. So if we can get it on the agenda, and we'll all attend, and I'm sure Ms. Hassel will attend, and Kay will be there. I didn't, and John, I hope. So.
And that would be through the clerk of the
It's
town.
it's
Kathy McCoy.
no, it's actually it's Kathy Overman. She's
Yeah,
the unit
Kathy Overman.
secretary. And I'll email you
Please.
the information that I have.
So what happens, Jay, if we table this for another couple of months? Would that be all right?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no rush into any of this. The only aspect that was, potentially out there, which again, somewhat promulgated some of these ordinance changes, because if we go back to 3.5 years ago, this zoning committee, was asked what their interpretation of a resort was. And they said that, well, 2 units is fine, but that 3rd unit, we would see that as a resort use. Well, there was a situation in which someone was renting out 2 dwelling units on 1 lot. That was upheld by the Board of Appeals for my determination, was then overturned by Circuit Court on a default judgment, and basically said that rental of more than 1 unit on 1 lot would be a resort. Those individuals that were doing that said use, along with several others that we've identified, have basically been stated through the health department that they can't rent more than 1 unit on the lot because it doesn't meet zoning provisions. And they have taken their advertisement down and have not rented, to my knowledge. If they were to rent additional units on their lot, they would be subject to citations for an illegal use. So they're still kind of in limbo, wondering, well, what's going to happen? And I would assume that they'll probably either conform with only rental of 1, or they'll try to rent multiple, which will trigger me to issue them citations, and they'll go through the court process and probably try to fight it through there as well. Which again, it's not really your concerns, but.
My proposal would just be that we go through that April WTA meeting and then revisit this in May. I mean, potentially it's going to be the same zoning, but it could be different, but I still feel like we need to do our due diligence for everybody, not just the situation that you just indicated, but and revisit this again in May after we get the opinions at the WTA meeting.
Yeah.
I'd like to suggest that we get the committee back together that was working on this and invite anybody from the public that would like to join that committee and make some changes as well.
We had a committee for ad hoc. I haven't seen a committee for.
So it wasn't necessarily as a formulated
wasn't.
committee. I had asked for some help from certain individuals to, I guess, help draft this, because I would sit down and, I mean, again, we're on version 6.0. There's a lot of different versions of it. And kind of just shared my frustration of, well, how do I get this to read cleanly and precise and fix the potential issues? Now, Rebecca, maybe you can help with this. If I am to reach out to certain individuals to help as a kind of workshop building, do I need to publish that? Should I go through other avenues of formulation of an ad hoc? Or as me as zoning administrator can just say, hey, John Smith, do you want to help me put a draft together?
You can reach out to an individual, because certainly you're contacted by members of the public with comments and questions. And so it's totally appropriate for you to have that one-to-one conversation with individuals. In terms of having multiple individuals come together, the question then becomes whether that is a capital M meeting under the statutes, under Chapter 19. And we have talked about this before, that the discussions you've had with individuals over this ordinance did not meet the definition of a capital M meeting of a governing body, and so therefore notice was not required. If the committee is thinking about a more formalized group to have discussions, and you would like to include other members of the public or even town representatives, certainly you could request that an ad hoc committee be formed. At this juncture, that might be a next step option, to continue discussions to move this forward. So again, I would recommend if the committee is thinking of a more formalized group with specific representatives, that it be forwarded to the board for creation of an ad hoc committee. And then you can proceed with that ad hoc committee.
I respect your opinion on that. I would just like to see us give the towns the respect first before we would form that. So maybe it would, at the WTA meeting, maybe that would be enough. Maybe there is going to be enough, stakeholders in the room that we wouldn't need to form an ad hoc committee, because as we saw with the other ad hoc, it gets pretty intense. So if we could just wait until after that WTA meeting and bring that back in May, I think that's what I would appreciate.
All right, I agree with Stacy on this. Maybe we should do that WTA meeting and then go from there. Like I say, all the town chairs are usually most of them are at them Wisconsin Towns Association meeting. And like I say, it's the best place to bring it up right now, and you should get a lot of comment out of there on what they want.
Sure.
So, and then bring it back in May.
Okay. Rebecca, you had your hand up there?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment too, that if the committee would like, I'd be happy to reach out to Mike Colas, or Carol DeRocky is the legal counsel for WTA. I was going to offer that up before. If you'd like me to do that, I'm happy to do that. Or if you'd like me to wait until after that April 29th meeting, I'm happy to do that. I also just wanted to offer, if there are, if there's other legal counsel involved that have been working with the towns, I'm happy to talk to those attorneys as well. Oftentimes, if I have an opportunity to speak with opposing counsel, then we can make some headway. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you'd like me to do that, I'm happy to.
Yeah, Rebecca, too, earlier I've got calls on people on this ordinance, said they had their town attorneys looking at it and they couldn't make hide nor hair of it. Well, I guess if they can't make hide nor hair of it, they're not going to get a good thing from her or their attorney to pass it at the town. So I think you should take a look at it too with the Wisconsin Towns Association's attorneys. What do you guys?
Yeah, and in that situation, Mr. Buckholz, if there's other counsel who can't understand it, I sure would encourage them to reach out to me, because maybe it's just a matter of questions that they have.
Sure.
And if it is legal counsel actually looking at this, I think I could have a productive conversation and be able to articulate back to this group what those other legal counsel's comments are. So again, I'll just reiterate that if there's other opposing counsels out there that want to reach out, I'm happy to listen if the committee would like me to do so.
The only one I had heard that had reached out to their town council on this was the town of Draper. Had kind of shown it to their town attorney. I hadn't heard from any other towns that they had their attorneys review this, so.
I guess that's the one that got back to me too, Jay, on that. It was
Okay.
Town of Draper, yes.
Do we know who the council was? Just out of
No,
curiosity.
I don't,
I don't.
but I can reach out to the town of Draper to get that information, so.
Yeah, and I won't reach out unless the committee would like me to do so, but I'm just curious as to who it was.
I don't think at this time it would be necessary, but
Very good.
Yes,
I'm just afraid that April 29th might be too soon because the town chairs will need to gather some information. So there might have to be a special meeting or a special meeting from the planning commissions to be able to get, good information into those town chairs to be able to share with this committee by April 29th.
Those meetings are just quarterly, so you'd have to wait 3 more months.
yeah, 10 days is not a lot of time, but I'm going to try my darndest to get multiple copies and probably even send emails out to the town chairs as kind of how we got from step A to point A from point B. But also just to really kind of, open it up to them in that public format as to, what does it need by your town standards in order to move forward?
And I think that would be great because I think having you there would be a huge asset instead of having people that are not on the zoning administration.
So good. I don't know if we need any further action on this. I guess it's just no action at this point. Is that fine, Rebecca?
And one sec.
It says possible action. We just don't have action. It's not really tabled because we may not pick this back up in May.
Yeah, no, I don't think.
I should have said postpone, not tabled, but
Yeah, I think you don't have to take any formal action. However, I think you could, if the committee so desired, you could make a motion to, continue discussions that are consistent with your discussions at this meeting. You could certainly do that. I mean, it's optional though. I don't think the committee has to take action. So you can proceed if you wish.
So no action. We're gonna go that route.
Yep.
All right, next I have draft ordinance amendment to remove platted subdivision restrictions from storage shed exemptions of section 4.26 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance. These changes to actually, strike that language were first brought to my attention by the town of Bass Lake. Now, in that letter that the town of Bass Lake had sent to me, they were wanting it more in conjunction with their town camping provisions. However, how 4.26 is structured really doesn't have anything to do with camping. Now, I would say 90 to 95% of the storage shed exemptions that we receive via the zoning office are for those engaged in recreational vehicle camping on their lots, but not all the time. Someone may just want a small shed on their forestry zone property that they can store some, tools or a four-wheeler and then, recreate on their property, but they're not even camping there. This 4.26 exemption is relatively new. It's only been around for roughly 2.5 years. And as part of the acceptance into the zoning ordinance, these were the conditions that those individuals had to make. Again, when I heard from the town of Bass Lake, they were requesting that we would bring this up and potentially remove that language as far as platted subdivisions. I am remaining totally neutral on this aspect, so don't ask for my opinion on this one. But I do believe that there are several individuals in the audience that would like to make additional comments as part of this proposal.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Neese, 3 minutes. Free? No.
Oh, okay. Did you, I won't, I sent an email to all of you, which I hope you got. And if you read it, I will not bore you with reading it again. I'll just highlight, as a property owner in Northwoods Beach subdivision, I strongly object to allowing storage sheds on vacant lots in platted subdivision. There are 162 platted subdivisions in Sawyer County. Took a long time to get that. With more than, and I stopped at 10,438 properties. So that's what we're talking about. That's within these subdivisions. This change would have far-reaching negative effects all the way across the county. So I would, and there are several places within my email or within the ordinance that really makes this not applicable to happen. And it's 6.666 and 6.7. Owners of parcels and platted subdivisions should have reasonable expectations of residents and not scattered campsites with sheds within their subdivision. I urge you not to give this amendment any credibility by sending to the towns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak out there on the sheds? Yes, sir. Come up, state your name. 3 minutes.
My name is Bon Sutton. The Planning Committee Chairman for Town of Bass Lake. I also live at 14225 W Coudray Lake Drive in Town of Bass Lake. Currently, the reason that this was brought to our attention is because there are unsightly amenities around the properties that people are camping by, and to contain them and create the holistic feeling of ownership in the area, they had requested to put in storage sheds. These storage sheds are contingent of course, on the property and the amount of property that they own. So it is in alignment with the current plan where homeowners are allowed to have storage sheds under these amendments. So it would be in conjunction with that. It's not designed to create an unsightly area. It's designed to create a better looking area in those adjacent properties. So in conclusion, this is something that is designed to make it look better, not worse. It's not to create an unsightly area. Current homeowners have the ability to put storage sheds on their properties. And this would still be in contingent with that because they would have to have the same amount of space to do the sheds as well in the camping areas. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Gentleman in the back there, state your name.
Stuart Campbell, Town of Bass Lake, Highway Supervisor, Crew Chief. This came to my attention. I take care of all the camping permits that the Town of Bass Lake issues. With that, I also agree, there's that many subdivisions, it shouldn't just be a line item thing. The only thing Bass Lake was looking for was for those residents or those property owners that have camping sites within, for example, Northwoods Beach, would be able to put up a storage shed to keep their personal belongings safe and secure and out of sight. Right now in Northwoods Beach subdivision, we only allow 15 campsites in the entire area of Northwoods Beach and only 5 in all other plotted subdivision. So that's kind of the simplest part of it. I don't want all of Sawyer County having sheds. I don't want any vacant property to have those sheds either. It's specifically for the people that are coming here on the weekends and don't have to keep bringing stuff back and forth. And that's the gist of it. So if we could simplify it somehow just for camping, that would be great.
Okay, all right, thank you. Linda.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, resident Village of Birchwood. Some history on this is that this whole idea of having storage sheds on vacant land was long denied by previous zoning committee members. They did not want to see storage sheds on vacant land. It's kind of an attractive nuisance. It kind of invites theft. You don't know what's stored in them. It could be potential flammable materials. Being that the zoning office staffing is pretty limited as to what they could do to enforcement, how would people be enforcing of a small shed versus all of a sudden becomes added onto, and then it's a deck, and then people are sleeping in it. And so finally, what happened a couple years ago, I think this coincided too with a former county supervisor who brought up the shipping container ordinance. The compromise was, and as the zoning administrator brought forward, that people who were camping here wanted to not have to take their things back and forth on the weekend. But it was pretty apparent that it was not going to be limited to just people camping here. So the compromise position, and again, it wasn't just the town of Bass Lake, but other towns who did not want to see carte blanche storage sheds on vacant land. The compromise is that in those subdivisions where it was very intentional that this was set up for future residential development, that they would not be allowed there. So it wasn't, even though this was maybe brought forward by the town of Bass Lake and this subdivision was put in there, it was agreed upon by all the towns that they did not want to see storage sheds in areas that were subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kurtzwell.
Douglas Kurtzwell, 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. I was going to stay out of this one completely, but back in the early 80s, we'd allow garages, sheds on vacant properties, even in the shoreline zone, and only took a couple of years and people were sleeping in them, cooking in them, and defecating in a bucket and tossing it outside in the woods. So then the ordinances were changed where you had to have a dwelling or at least a sanitary system, I believe, in order to build anything. With our camping ordinance, I believe it's 4 different aspects of it, 4 different options.
Yeah, only 2 of them are selected though.
Yes, but in these areas where people do have, it's generally like a travel trailer type of a thing, miniature mobile home, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they some of them do have some sort of sanitary facilities, some don't. Many of them have little sheds, storage sheds, and no permits on it. Some of them are underneath 100 square feet. Some of them are well over 200 or 300 square feet. And some of these prefab sheds, I'm starting to see some of them that are halfway decent size, couple 200, 300, 400 square feet, and people are living in them. And of course, you're going to be able to catch them a whole lot easier in the subdivisions, Northwoods Beach, than what you are out in the boondocks in Draper or Coudray or even Meadowbrook on occasion.
Yeah, Meadowbrook. There's some out there.
There are a lot of them out there. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I have a hand raised from Martin Hanson.
Go ahead, Mr. Hanson, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Hanson, 11078N Robin Lane, Town of Round Lake, representing myself. I just wanted to register my opposition to the proposed changes for storage sheds in platted subdivisions. I do not think that's a good idea. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, committee, what do you want to do with this? I guess I have a question, and that's probably been already answered, but I maybe missed it. On Bass Lake, in the people that have homes, can they put up storage sheds?
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't want them on the vacant. Okay.
And on that vacant lot, Bass Lake allows camping with a permit and a whole lot of stipulations. And it would be just for those, for Bass Lake, like you say, I can't speak for everyone. I can't speak for all other townships. And like I say, I do agree. I don't want to see it totally X'd out because those things are going to happen. But for the few that we have, Bass Lake specifically, we've limited the amount of camping sites in Northwoods Beach to 15 total. That's it. That's all that'll ever be. Once they establish that, there are quite a few of them that have camping They have a full-blown water, septic, and electric, and they are looking to, in the future, build a house and move here. They can't afford it at this time, but that's what they're doing. Those 15 and only 5 in the other subdivisions that we have, that was the gist of it, to allow them a storage shed.
Right.
For that community.
Could we amend that to say the exemption is not allowed in platted subdivisions unless approved by the township? So we can put the control back on the township to whether or not they want it as part of their plan. Can we just amend that to the exemption is not allowed in platted subdivisions unless approved by the town board?
We could.
Because if their town board is saying that they want it, but other town boards are saying they don't want it, I think that would make the ownership back on the town and give that local control back to the town.
Yeah, and we do that similarly for those that want a shipping container. Now again, I don't want to muddy shipping container
Please
with
don't.
this storage shed exemption, but if you had a house on your lot and you wanted to have a shipping container, currently, we would receive that application, send it off to the towns for town approval to have a shipping container. Could we do that for this provision for the platted subdivision aspect? The answer is yes. And it's whether or not the committee wants to move that forward or not.
I'll make a motion to move that directive forward to add that it's with the approval of the township. So that it's exempted, it is not allowed in platted subdivisions unless approved by the township.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hessel, and a second by Mr. Righeimer to redo the storage shed exemption for town approval. I guess that would work.
Yeah, so ultimately, so you have a motion and a second as part of discussion here. So I would have the language read that this exemption is not allowed in platted subdivisions unless approved by that town or by the town. And at that point, I would send that provision or change off to the towns for their approval. Would come back to zoning committee, hopefully next month already. We would hold an official public hearing on that. Then we'd have to go to county board as a zoning ordinance amendment. And that would be pretty straightforward for our office because we already do it for several other aspects that require town approval. And yeah, that's, I guess, your motion and your second, but just know that it's changing from what it's posted as right here.
Right. So, okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. All right.
All right, so then moving on, we are on the tourist rooming house ordinance discussion. This is the draft ordinance. So again, this ordinance is as a licensing ordinance, which is through the Sawyer County Health Department. So the Health and Human Service Board is going to hold the official aspects of the public hearing process before, if it would move to county board. The aspects that are related to the zoning department are just for the sewer system aspects. So there would be additional oversight from the zoning department to do the verification of the sewer system check, just making sure that they have an existing sanitary permit on record and as to what sizing that sanitary permit is for. I've been involved with this from step one. As far as what additional strain this is going to put on the zoning department is very minute. Because we have a lot of scanned documents of our existing sanitary permit records that are all really kind of up to date at this point. And it'll be a few minute check per each individual TRH application that comes in, which would be in through the health department. Health department would seek zoning departments for the verification of the sanitary permit, which would ultimately determine the occupancy. That can be checked very quickly by multiple staff in our office. So again, we're not necessarily wanting this as a zoning ordinance, and the aspects that it puts on the zoning department is very minute. I certainly can help answer any additional questions that this committee has because, again, from step one, the chair had wanted to at least have some additional discussions on the TRH ordinance. We do have the chair and vice chair of our TRH ad hoc committee, as well as another member of that ad hoc committee as well. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. I know Rebecca has been instrumental in the creation of this draft version, as well as several other departmental staff and that ad hoc committee.
Ms. Cecil?
Can I just encourage us to just send this on to the Committee of Jurisdiction, which would be Health and Human Service, and take it off of the zoning?
We listened, or we examined this at our last meeting and
Right.
made comments about that. Did you get Julia's comments?
I did not.
So since it's not a zoning issue, we wouldn't need to, though, is what I'm saying, is that if we could just move it out of this committee and into the Committee of Jurisdiction, which would be the Health and Human Services, then we don't have to look at it anymore.
And that's where it should go.
Correct.
Then Andy Alvarado has his hand raised as well.
Mr. Alvarado, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of chime in on that. So at Human Services, we did talk about it and moving it to our public hearing. The committee decided to just set it aside until the next committee meeting when the new committee sat to determine when that public hearing would occur. And so we'll obviously be letting the full board members know when that public hearing is. So anybody could attend and hear the public comment.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Andy. So no more discussion on this?
I do, Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Schuman, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. I've been intently listening to all this. What great comments. Doesn't the multi-dwelling ordinance have something to do also within the tourist rooming house or not? Isn't that somehow included in that, Jay?
Not really, not to the aspects of probably what you're thinking of. The only aspects would be as part of, kind of as a resort use, where again, we're classifying that if it's more than one rental on one lot, you are then determined to be as a resort and would have other zoning approvals that may or may not be needed if we can ever finalize our multi-dwelling development ordinance. So as of right now, no, it really has no impact because if you're renting more than one, you're a resort and you would not be able to do so as part of zoning ordinance as well as part of the TRH ordinance. So that's again, one unit per lot, unless you're otherwise already approved as a resort use, which we do have several, tens of, maybe even hundreds of resorts out there.
Okay. Stacy, you have a question?
Right. Thanks for clarifying that, Jay, but I knew there was mutual discussion on this.
All right. Number D, any new business that may come before the committee for discussion? I want to thank everybody out there in the audience.
They don't have to because it's not a zoning ordinance. It's just, it's tasking the zoning department to oversee the sanitary permit requirements.
I want to thank everybody in the audience. Good discussions, the committee. We're adjourned. You're welcome.
Huh? Oh, yeah.